Oh, good day, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you're all well. Oh my gosh, there's so many of you in the chat. Um, Everybody, welcome Brandon Keys. Brandon, how are you?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. So, for those people who are unaware, Brandon has been on the channel before, and we work so well together. He loves Bitcoin just like me. Heart Bitcoin. Heart Bitcoin. So Brandon, for those people who haven't seen your crypto story, because that is on the channel, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so I found Bitcoin in like 2016 to 18 time. I was in grad school, so didn't have a ton of money, was just learning about it, driving Uber, listening to podcasts, listening to some great content. So it's always good to tune in to Bitcoin and crypto related content to try to learn before diving all in. And that's what I did. So I didn't have any money, and then I started buying. And yeah, then I started my own content channel, Green Candle. And here I am here today.
Awesome, awesome. Let's see who's in the chat because oh my gosh, I love my people. So we've got Mike. Good day, Mike. We've got me as well. Um, we've got John Legend. Hi, John. I hope you're well. Thank you for leaving all the comments on my channel. I do appreciate that. We've got Rob C, my fellow Brit, and we've got Jesse. We've got David Bowles. How are you, David? I hope you're well. We've got Fitz. I hope you're well. So this is our Irish American. We love him. I love the Irish. Gotta say, love the Irish. We've got Trade Intuition. How are you, Joe? Bingo, bango. Oh my gosh, you guys talk a lot. Oh, and we've got Mr. Alex Storyteller. I hope you're well. And Curtis Hill. So that's the Telegram group. I was going to say, I'm not sure if I put this in the Telegram group today. Brandon, do you know Alicia Keys?
I mean, I get that a lot. I think that's her stage name, but maybe I have a cousin or two named Alicia here or there. So they've ended up benefiting from all of that. I'm kidding. But the reality is, I mean, Keys is an excellent last name. So I guess I was born to do stuff like this, right? Because hey, if we've got people making up the last name Keys, I guess I was destined to be famous in some way, shape, or form, right?
Yeah, okay. Just quickly, bagels and coffee. I never drink coffee. I actually have a really good story. So when I was 13, my grandmother, I think it was my grandmother, made me some tea. It burnt my tongue, and since then I've never drunk tea or coffee. I will have hot chocolate occasionally. And also bagels, they're okay, sort of common in the UK, but we prefer sandwiches. We're a bit more traditional. I hope the camera's okay, Jesse. Good morning, Black Hat team. Oh no, my camera's blurry. What can I do? Oh, there's nothing I can do about it. You guys know what I look like anyway. Oh my gosh. Let me have a look. I don't know. Can you see me properly,
Yeah,
Brandon?
it is a little blurry. I would say it's probably just from the internet. So there's really not too much you can do about it, unfortunately.
Let me try to clean it. 1 second. I have no idea if that's worked or not. Hi, Carl. I hope you're well. Yes, no tea. Oh, but just very quickly, guys, on Friday, I will be doing my afternoon tea as a live stream. So do join me for that. Hello, all set. I hope you're well. And we've got Peace of My Mind. I'll be talking about that later. And Tim, how are you, Tim? I hope you're well. Okay, so let's start. So Bitcoin technology always evolves. Bitcoin was originally designed as a peer-to-peer payment solution, as detailed in Satoshi Nakamoto's white paper of 2008. I think it was like the 31st of October 2008. There's certain things that really stick in my mind. But there was evidence that Satoshi Nakamoto may have reconsidered this in 2010 and 11 via email correspondence. And that was when the block size war debate took off. Brandon, in your view, is Bitcoin today more suited as a monetary asset that's like digital gold, a hedge against inflation? Or should it still aim to fulfill its original vision as a peer-to-peer network? I mean, we do have other better peer-to-peer networks like the Lightning Network, etc., and other blockchains that are better positioned to carry out peer-to-peer transactions.
Yeah, so that's a great question. I think everything on the base layer of Bitcoin is going to evolve. So I think, you mentioned the Lightning Network. For those who don't know or are not familiar of the Lightning Network, that's essentially a layer 2 on top of Bitcoin. So I think the reality is that the blockchain and everything else, it's designed to be slow and inefficient because, it's just accumulating a ton of data. This is why you need all these computers working on it to mine all across the world. This is why you need nodes in order to run the network. Just because the reality is it takes a lot of computing power. But I mean, if you take a step back and really look at it, right? There's Visa, there's MasterCard, American Express, all of these different corporations that spend and earn billions and billions of dollars every single year just based on the transactions. Now, Bitcoin as it stands right now, like I said, the best use case in the United States is digital gold. It's not the peer-to-peer electronic cash just yet, because the reality is everybody gets banked. Everybody has a bank account and can access money or funds and transact fairly easily. But in other places around the world, like the El Salvadors, there's a lot of people that are not banked. And so it is a peer-to-peer electronic cash. So it really depends where you are in the world, where the technology is right now. But what I will say is that it is going to develop into that peer-to-peer cash. I have full on belief that that is going to happen. It's just maybe it's going to look a little different, right? I mean, it's not going to be necessarily all on the Bitcoin base layer. Maybe, we've implemented the Lightning Network. I pay my editors in Bitcoin right now using the Lightning Network. And so, some of my sponsors pay me in Bitcoin. Some do it on chain, some do it through Lightning. So, I think the development of Bitcoin as peer-to-peer electronic cash is going to continue because it's an easier and more efficient way to transfer that wealth. So I think when you look at other blockchains, right, a lot of people will argue, okay, there is, some sort of speed advantage or cost efficiency. And that's just, factually incorrect. Like if you look at the differences between XRP, for example, and the Lightning Network, well, Bitcoin is 7 to 8 times faster and is 5 to 10 times cheaper than XRP. And the amount of transaction volumes that Bitcoin handles right now is significantly higher. And I'm just calling out XRP because that's what I hear a lot of people talk about these days as one of the altcoins, for example. But if you really take a step back, Bitcoin is truly decentralized. It takes the power of the people, and it's not meant to elevate some sort of banking system. It's meant to take the power away from them and be that peer-to-peer electronic cash. So I think, long story short, Bitcoin is the best and only way that is created right now in order to become that. And I think it's just going to continue to develop. Now, will we have the Lightning Network on layer 2? Will it continue to develop? Will we have some layer 3s? Will we have some other ways to transact in the future that might not be on Bitcoin's base layer? Maybe. But I think that we're going to get there at some point in time, and we're just, still developing. I mean, if you think about it, Bitcoin's like a 15-year-old asset right now. So there's a lot of things that can develop, and I think a lot can change in the next 10 years, to say the very least.
I personally, for me, Bitcoin is more of a monetary solution than it is a payment solution. So I know when I read up and I studied the blockchain wars, there were plenty of things that it's even like Satoshi went back and he said, well, actually, Bitcoin, I don't want the block sizes to increase. However, he was for them and then he was kind of against them. But then when you go back at it, they didn't even know what a hard fork was. They didn't even know what a soft fork was. Bitcoin, John, Lightning Network is actually built on on Bitcoin, if that makes sense. There's a lot of hard forks and soft forks and all the rest of it. In fact, we can even do a live stream on that, because the technology behind Bitcoin is absolutely amazing. A lot of people get into Bitcoin, just like I did, into cryptocurrency for the money. But then when you look at it and you look at the miners, how amazing this mining system is, that the double spend, how people can't double spend on the blockchain, on the Bitcoin blockchain. And then you look at the size of the developers, and then obviously we've got retail as well. There's a lot of powerful factors that actually go into making Bitcoin. It's not just a price action. And I think a lot of people just think Bitcoin is price action. It's not. Let's look at some of the price action now. So let's look at the ETF. So back in 2004, gold got its ETF, and as a result, gold took off substantially for the next 8 odd years. It made really good gains in the 2008 financial crisis when everything else was falling apart. So back in, I think it was January 2024, Bitcoin was retailing for 46, or was it 47,000? I think it was 46,000 US dollars. Today is over 100,000 US dollars. If it continues on this trajectory, it's going to go absolutely parabolic. If we look at how gold behaved when it got its ETFs, are you expecting the Bitcoin chart now to behave somewhere similar to what gold did?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think Bitcoin is going to behave even better than what gold did. I think Bitcoin will be way more parabolic than anything we've ever seen in our entire lifetime, because Bitcoin is truly a scarce asset. That is verifiable. There's only 21 million Bitcoin in circulation as it stands right now. And you can go on the blockchain, you could verify that. You can see that no matter what, there's only 5% maximum held by one single entity, about 1 million coins. All the whales that everybody talks about Bitcoin manipulating the price, that is not there, right? And we see BlackRock and these ETFs already scooping up over 1 million coins in just over a year. And MicroStrategy is about on that. So we see a bunch of different players coming in. But the reality is as it stands right now, there's like 2.1, 2.2 million Bitcoin left on exchanges. And then there's 155,000 Bitcoin left on over-the-counter desks, or OTC desks. You guys will hear me use this term a little bit, because the OTC desks is where these Bitcoin treasury companies go and buy Bitcoin. And the reality is there's 450 Bitcoin mined every single day. And the treasury companies alone, even just Michael Saylor and Strategy, they probably buy up like weeks worth at a time pretty regularly, or just, maybe 5 or 10 companies do that. So retail hasn't even really woken up just yet. There's a study that came out and said from Bank of America here recently that said 75% of Americans and people that have a bank account at Bank of America have zero exposure to Bitcoin or crypto. So if you think about it, we're still very, very early. And the reality is that once retail starts to wake up, once people start to figure out, okay, this is Bitcoin, maybe they'll buy the ETF, then maybe they'll take it off an exchange and hold it in something like, this little hardware wallet I got here. They'll back it up with, a little crypto steel case I've got here, or, some sort of other punch plate, and they'll take it off an exchange, and we'll have the coveted short squeeze that we'll potentially have. And either those ETFs are going to have to issue paper Bitcoin, and nobody's going to want that, or, they're going to have to find some sort of other solution like the in-kind redemptions we've seen here recently. So, I think long story short, gold was a scarce asset allegedly, but it also
Mhm.
takes a ton of time to verify and all of these different things. Bitcoin's instant. It's 24/7, 365. And, these ETFs can't just be waiting on the sidelines during, after 5 o'clock on a Friday, waiting, all this time just to potentially buy up at 9 a.m. on a Monday while everybody else is running rampant over the weekend trying to scoop all this up. I mean, we saw it when Trump announced that there's going to be a Bitcoin strategic reserve. It was on a Sunday night. Everything shot up drastically. So Bitcoin's just a different beast, and I think TradFi, traditional finance, the retail pleb, everybody, they've never seen anything like this with true final scarcity, and
Mhm.
so I think it's going to react like something we've never seen before.
So you think it's going to do better than gold? Oh my God, that's amazing. I love that. I actually think it's probably going to do better than gold as well. The only issue is at the moment, a lot of people in the world either don't understand what Bitcoin is or they're afraid of it. Do you think that will impact how well it will do in the coming years?
Yeah, so I don't know if the fear is necessarily there. I think that majority of people just don't understand it. I mean, the reality is majority of people don't want to think about money, and I think that's a true issue in the society that we're in right now. Is that essentially you're forced to think about money because of the amount of inflation that we're seeing, just globally, and everybody thinks, okay, you need to be invested in the S&P 500, all of these different, just generic quote unquote safe investments. But if you look at the M2 money supply globally and compare that to the S&P 500 since the year 2000, the S&P 500 is actually down 2% relative to the M2 money supply. So in reality, you're not keeping up with how much the money supply is growing, which means you're not keeping up with inflation just by investing into the S&P 500. So, there's going to be more education that's going to be needed. There's more spotlights and more time and more people talking about Bitcoin on a daily basis. So I think that time is coming. It's just right now we're still early, even though we're only 15 years in. Everybody thinks that, once they figure it out, everybody else should be figuring it out. But like I said, the reality is we're still very early. A lot of people don't have eyes on it. I mean, I was presenting at a podcasting meetup here the other day, and they're like, "Oh, we didn't know you had a Bitcoin podcast. Isn't that like weren't people talking about that a bunch like a couple years ago? Now nobody talks about it." I'm like, it was literally like a day after Bitcoin hit the all-time high. I was like, "Yeah, it hit the all-time high yesterday." And he's like, "Oh, really?" And I'm like, "Yep." It's just like little interactions that I have with people not in the Bitcoin space. They still don't see how big this thing is and where it's going.
Mhm, mhm. Just very quickly, I want to shout out Stupid Bitcoin. That's actually a username. I really wish he would change that, but he likes it. David P, Lauren, and John 316, who have joined us in the chat. I think you're very right. I don't think people know or understand money at all. To be fair, how much do even the people who have university degrees and PhDs actually understand money? Nobody really knows how much money there is in the world, like completely in the world. Even when you look at countries' debts, you'll look at America, what was it, 37 billion? Sorry, trillion.
$37.5 trillion right
Trillion
now.
US dollars currently in debt. Then you look at England and all the other countries in wherever. But when you add them all up, I think it was something along the lines, and do nobody quote me on this, but it was over 300 trillion US dollars that the entire world, all these companies were in debt. There's so much money, there's so much debt out there. No fiat currency has ever survived. Just quickly, people are really struggling as well, and I think that's why they're so busy trying to feed their families. They're so busy trying to put trying to put food on the table that they don't actually have time to look into what money really is. They don't have time to look into why there's so much inflation, because it's very, very difficult. Even somebody who's been studying this since 2021, I still struggle with it. Just quickly, how many Michael Saylors are there? Obviously, we've got the Michael Saylor, but how many Michael Saylors are there? I know every day one treasury company, one company, traded companies adding Bitcoin to the balance sheet. How many Michael Saylors are there now?
Yeah, so right now there's 192 publicly traded companies globally. In the last 30 days, there's been 26 new added. So that's about one per day, a little less. But, over the summer, we had one every other day. So, I mean, this time last year, I believe we had like 30. So we have 192. So obviously, we see the parabolic growth. But the difference, obviously, with Michael Saylor is Michael Saylor's at just under 640,000 Bitcoin. And the next closest is Marathon Digital, and they're at like just over 52,000. So the massive gap between 1 and 2 is huge, but there's still room for people to come in and I think take over that number 2 spot. So it'll be really interesting to see how this develops. And, I think a big difference that we need to differentiate here is that Michael Saylor does have an underlying business for his company. It's a cybersecurity company. They have a product. It's a SaaS company, software as a service. Whereas, a lot of these treasury companies that are coming online are simply just, like if you and I were to go to a bank, say, hey, you know what, we formed a business. We're teaming up, and instead of us individually being able to get a loan for 10,000 pounds or $10,000 or whatever it is, us together, we could get a loan for 50,000 pounds or $50,000. And so now we just buy Bitcoin and hope that it goes up, and we continue to do that and, keep going to places that we can get access to capital. Now, the issue with a lot of that is a lot of these companies don't have an underlying business. Therefore, it's on the people and Bitcoin's price action to essentially be able to pay off the debt, which in the big volatile swings can get a little hairy. So I will say, be very careful. Not every treasury company is going to make it out of this, even though we have, so many just coming on up. There still is some sort of risk associated with it, and it's not all all going to be as good as we've seen it from Michael Saylor and Strategy.
This kind of concerns me. Now, I'm already programmed to never have debt, no credit cards, no loans, no nothing. I recently just purchased a car. It should be here in a couple of weeks. Paid it all off in cash. If I didn't have cash, I would keep the car that I've already got. I don't do debt. Even with my phone, I buy the actual phone and then pay for the contract, if that makes sense. These companies are raising millions, not millions, even billions of US dollars with debt, and they're buying crypto. They're buying Bitcoin. Does that worry you, or is that just my mindset? Do not use debt to buy anything.
Look, I think debt is a tool. If you go and look at all of the millionaires, billionaires globally, all of them are in a ton of debt. Rich Dad, Poor Dad is a big, big, giant, first principle kind of reading book for everybody that gets into real estate, gets into all of these different things. The difference is that Bitcoin is just more volatile. So using debt to buy a house doesn't necessarily seem like a risk, but housing doesn't always go up, believe it or not. I know we're programmed to think, oh, housing is this safe investment, but hey, I'm sitting in this house here. I own it, but I have to go get, I have to fix up the shower. That's an expense. I have to fix up toilets, floors, all of the things in the houses around me depreciate. But the reality is Bitcoin, it's got the green, 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 red. Like maybe one year you have it down, but as long as you can afford the payments, and even in a black swan like terrible event, you can managed to avoid all, the liquidation aspect of it. I think that's where it gets really important. So what I would say is, obviously it's not financial advice, but when you see Bitcoin cross its all-time high, usually you see it start to crack up here pretty quickly, and things can go, pretty fast. Now, majority of people are going to want to borrow at the top because they're like, oh, Bitcoin's never going to go down anymore. This is the way. What I think the two best places to borrow against your Bitcoin is maybe right now, where, we're kind of floating in this 110 to 120 area where it's just under the all-time high, but hasn't started the true run up of the bull run that we all know is coming. Or in the bear market, when we drop down and things are bad and bloody, and you want to unlock some of your purchasing power, but you don't want to sell. Those are the two times where I think is best. But the reality is majority of people are going to try to borrow at the top and keep doing that. And that's what we saw last bull run, is a lot of these mining companies borrowed against their Bitcoin miners, which are depreciating assets, and Bitcoin shot up, but then it also shot back down. So I think, as long as you avoid getting over leveraged, it's not a huge negative. I don't think debt is a negative. I think debt is a big, big tool. And I think everybody should look at it in that sense, because that's how the wealthy do it. I mean, the wealthy look at, Bitcoin or not Bitcoin, as debt, as a tool to go buy some of these assets. And that's how the rich stay rich. Now, not everybody can do what Saylor does at that scale, where, he issues debt, buys Bitcoin against his stock, then, borrows against his Bitcoin and against his stock, and just keeps on doing that. Obviously, that's, for a giant corporation like that, it's a little bit safer than if you're doing it as an individual. But, like I said, I think there's going to be some that blow up. I'm not afraid of people utilizing debt to buy Bitcoin, but I just think some people are going to be irresponsible with it.
Totally. And I'm just concerned that some of these companies that are buying so much Bitcoin, putting them on their balance sheets, that they might struggle if the bear market comes up. We'll be talking about the bear market in a little bit. Let's talk about retail now. Retail, gosh. So for the first time, probably in Bitcoin's history, for as far as I'm aware, in Bitcoin's history. Well, let me ask you this question. Do you think mass adoption of Bitcoin is coming from grassroots, i.e. normal people, average Joe, or do you think it's coming from top down, the governments, the institutions, etc.?
Well, I think it's coming from the grassroots, but then
Still.
here's how I see the development. Is I think Bitcoin goes in like 50-year cycles. So
Okay.
the new technology goes in 50-year cycles. So the first 10 years is plebs, grassroots, which is what we saw. The second 10 years is institutions, which is what we're seeing right now. So it started off with the plebs, really showing that it's the proof of concept. Obviously we have the Bitcoin pizza day. 10,000 Bitcoin for 2 pizzas. That's etched in Bitcoin's history. And then on top of it, we have now the institution. So Michael Saylor developing all that. And I don't think we're going to see massive amounts of government adoption for another, 4-ish years. And I think it's still going to take time before governments really FOMO in. Now, I could be completely wrong about that. There's allegedly some big announcement coming on very soon, and I could be looking dumb here and in very short order, I guess. But I think that the reality is that these policies take a long time to get implemented in the government, whereas the pleb, all they got to do is either find a friend who owns Bitcoin, buy some off of them, or sign up for an exchange and buy some today. So it doesn't really have so much overhead, and I think that it's just going to take some time to try to get everybody to get adopted. Now, then after the government 10 years, we're 30 years into it at this point. I think then you'll start to see years 30 to 40. That's when Bitcoin will be used more as a medium of exchange. And then the last 10 years, 40 to 50 years from Bitcoin's creation, that's when Bitcoin will become the unit of account. So instead of using dollars, pounds, whatever, we'll price everything in Satoshis. So like I said, long story short, I think we're still, in that development cycle. But it all started with the plebs, the grassroots movement. Right now, we are moving into the institutional adoption, and that's where we are. But we wouldn't have gotten here if the plebs didn't really pave the way.
Just quickly, loose on crypto, JR and Lasers Go Pow Pow. Welcome to the chat. Okay, let's talk about, so this 50-year cycle, I've never heard of it before. Is this something that's scientifically, mathematically sort of proven? Has it happened before?
Yeah, it's happened in history multiple times. So, when I look at, I've had multiple discussions with this on my channel with a good friend, Mark Moss. He really lines this out very well and elegantly on like the development of technologies and the development of, money. It usually takes some time. Now, the interesting thing with all of this is that, you think that 50 years sounds like a long time, but if you look back in history, it's just kind of right on the money. Now, the only difference is that, the money that has been created has taken different times to be created, if that makes sense. So gold, for example, took 2,000 years really to go from a pet rock to being used as a medium of exchange, and people are usually using it as coins and other things. Of course, it got manipulated and everything else. And then, it took about 200 years for the dollar to go from, where it is to then being used as a medium of exchange and being recognized. Now, Bitcoin, on the other hand, it went from like an idea and then the white paper in 2008, and then 2010 it got used as money to buy pizzas. So it took just 2 years. So you see the development of these, kind of shrinks and got a little quicker as technology improved and everything else. But I still think that the development is still going to take some time. And, I think that's a good thing for Bitcoin, because I think we're not quite ready for, the full-fledged embracement of everything just yet.
Why is retail not here?
Retail is always here. But I think if you look at the ETFs, majority of the ETF buying is from retail. So I think that everybody has the whole number bias. I mean, if you go and go talk to my friends, they're all going to tell you about XRP, some other type of crypto token or something like that, because Bitcoin's at 110, 120,000. It's too expensive to buy one. They don't realize that you don't need to buy a whole Bitcoin to just get started. I love to share this statistic all the time, but there's, more millionaires in the world. There's 62 million millionaires, and there's 13 million wallets that own 1 million Satoshis, or about, $1,100 to $1,200 worth of Bitcoin today. So all you need to do is own $1,100 to $1,200 worth of Bitcoin, and you'll be in a more exclusive class than people who have a net worth of $1 million or more. So that just shows how early we are in everything. And, we still have institutions and, these traditional financial advisors speaking ill of Bitcoin. Vanguard still won't let their clients buy any Bitcoin related products. It's just still the resistance from there. And like I said, I think majority of people just don't want to think about money. Majority of people have, their money sitting in a savings or a checking account. And, majority of Americans cannot handle a $1,000 issue if we have, some sort of emergency. So, like I said, I think it takes some time. But we're early in all aspects. It's not just retail isn't here. I think we see 192 companies coming online, but the amount of publicly traded companies globally is massive. And so I think we're going to start to see more companies, more people. All these influential people are just going to start to come. It just takes time. And I think everybody wants everybody to be all in right now and Bitcoin to hockey stick up and take off. I just don't think we're there just yet.
Let's not we have to sort of address the fact that so many people are struggling. Obviously, I know what's going on in the UK. People are really, really struggling in the UK. The worst story that I've ever heard is when I was helping out at a food bank. Somebody had heard on the radio something similar to that, but basically there were people who were refusing to take pasta because they couldn't afford to heat the water. People are really, really struggling. If somebody had a bit of money to put aside, would you recommend them putting it into Bitcoin?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, Bitcoin's the best savings technology there is. So if you want to keep your purchasing power, buy Bitcoin. If you're able to save 10, 20, even just $1 or a pound, whatever it is, you can go on different apps and buy 25 cents worth of Bitcoin. And as long as you don't need that money for long periods of time, hell, there's even, companies that will give you free sats for doing different things, like, right, like there's Fountain, there's a podcasting app. You can go and listen to podcasts. You can listen to my podcast on there, and Fountain will give you Satoshi just for listening and tuning in. You can go to, Fold, if you're in Canada or if you're in Mexico or the United States, there's this app called Yopaki. They give you, maybe 100 sats here or there. It doesn't sound like a much, but all of these different apps, when I've been creating content and doing all these things, I probably have 100,000 sats worth of just free satoshis that have been handed to me from these different apps in the past year. So that's $100, and that $100 used to be $60, or it used to be $40. It used to be $10, and now these apps just these faucets is what they call them, like the ability to just obtain Bitcoin with really just downloading an app that everybody uses, and everybody's got a smartphone at this point. Like, it's just if there's a will, there's a way. That there's just, and if you're in the UK, if you're in all these other places, like, you can really find another way, and just you have to just take ownership and really look at yourself in the mirror. Like, what am I doing with my time? Am I being efficient? Am I doing all these things? This is part of Bitcoin and the sovereign individual thesis. Is that okay? Like, crypto princess over here just told me she came from a job, then she came and did this, and she's doing this afterwards. Like, I'm not saying maybe you don't make a killing on this, but it's something that you enjoy, and you're going to find a way to maybe make some. Maybe somebody in the chat here gives you, $5 or something like that, or maybe you earn, $1 here or there from YouTube just from doing these things. And eventually maybe this takes off and this becomes your full-time gig. This is what I did. I mean, I worked on the side of all of these things for 3 years until I took it full-time about a year ago. So these things just take time to build up, as does stacking Bitcoin. But the beauty of stacking Bitcoin on the side is that you keep the purchasing power that you have. Full stop, right? If you put your, if you save, that the pound, the dollar, all of these things, it's not going to be able to buy you as many groceries as it does today as it will tomorrow. You just know that as a fact. Everybody just kind of accepts that. Maybe because it's not super drastic where we don't notice. But, I think, if you can save that money for 4 to 5 years, you're going to be doing all right with Bitcoin. So I think that that's going to keep doing that.
And then you have people like me who have a long-term mindset. You have to really know who you're talking to. Are you talking to somebody with a short-term mindset who wants to be a millionaire in 30 days? Or are you talking to somebody with a long-term mindset? So for me, my Bitcoin's for my great-great-grandchildren. So even when you say, when we talk about Bitcoins in sats and all the rest of it, I'm just like, yeah, I know, it's fine. Like, my great-great-grandchildren will have a statue of me, all the rest of it. And we are so early. There will be 32 halvings. We're only at number 4. And then obviously after the halvings have all finished and the mining rewards are all depleted, there will be no more Bitcoin, the miners will actually get money from transactions. So can you just imagine how much Bitcoin would be worth back then? Let's talk about the bear market. Do you think the 4-year cycle is intact?
Yeah, I mean, I think the 4-year cycle will always be here as long as we're on a fiat standard. If you look
Mhm.
back at the 4-year cycle, it aligns with the presidential election in the United States, and it aligns with the business cycle. So the reality is that everybody equates the 4-year cycle in Bitcoin to the halving, the Bitcoin miners. 95% of Bitcoin that's in circulation that's ever going to be in circulation is in circulation right now. So I don't think that 5% is going to really hold much weight in the change of this behavior. I just think that over time people are going to get leveraged, right? We're going to see all of these treasury companies come up, raise a bunch of money, then potentially blow up, and then maybe we get another FTX, or maybe we get something like that happening. And then
Mhm.
when these happen, oh, everybody equates all of these things with Bitcoin. They're going to sell their Bitcoin initially, and that's where we're going to start to see that. So I think at the end of the day, majority of people are going to see these 4-year cycles as a maybe as like a positive, where you see the weak hands get out. But I mean, I think the volatility, there's just going to people think that as Bitcoin is at a $2.5 trillion market cap, that these big players are going to be coming in and out, in and out, in and out, and that's going to cause the volatility to really slow down. I mean, the reality is it's not going to, they're not going to sell, right? These governments, companies, all these guys aren't going to sell. So it's just going to be on the behavior of the individuals, where we're seeing some whales sell off right now. But I think, over time, that volatility, it's gonna still be there. I don't think that we're gonna that it's going anywhere. So, yeah, I think, we still got it. Maybe we'll see some potentially people in the Bitcoin space, you know, start to come in and out. But I think,
Mhm.
yeah, I think the 4-year cycle is still here to stay. Sorry about that.
It's fine. I also think the 4-year cycle's here to stay, literally because of the halving. I didn't understand how powerful the miners were until I studied the block size wars. They are super, super powerful. And because of the halving, I do believe we will always have a 4-year cycle, or we'll have a 4-year cycle for the next, you know, until what is it, 2000? I can't remember now. Is it 2148 or something similar to that, when the last
Yeah.
halving cycle is done? So I completely agree. And whether or not we're in this larger 50-year cycle, only time will tell. 50-year cycle, 80-year cycle, 150-year cycle, whatever. I do believe we are in other cycles as well. We're just so super early, which is absolutely amazing. Because when I got in 2021, I was like, oh my God, I'm so late. Can you imagine when I got in 2021 in the bear market, in the 2022 bear market, Bitcoin was at 15,000 US dollars. And I was like, oh my God, this is like overpriced. Uh, okay. Do you think we're going to have a bear market next year? And what do you think that's going to look like?
I don't think next year we're going to have a bear market. Maybe towards the end of next year. I think the
Mhm.
cycles, so to speak, might be a little bit more elongated. So I think, we're not going to see the peak here just yet. I think we're going to see the peak a little bit later. So I think, like I said, I don't think we're going to see this bear market really come in and hit us hard like we think. But, I think the bear market, it's, like I said, I view it as just another opportunity to stack. So I think a lot of people see it as like a negative, these swings, ups and downs, but it just really tests your, validation on what you're investing in. And I think that's what majority of people should have, is that you need to be really like looking into how you're, where you're putting your money, where you're parking it, and really have conviction of it. So I don't know if that answered your question, but I don't think that we're really getting away from a bear market in general, but I don't think it's going to be next year.
That's interesting. What is that? Is that based on some sort of data that you've seen, or why is that?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at all of the, if you look at all of the cycles, right, the peak generally has come a little bit later after the halving. The unique aspect of this cycle was we did have the all-time high before the halving, first time this has ever
Mhm.
happened. And then we've crossed it again here recently. Um, but it's been kind of like a crab walk, a slow accumulation over time. And so, I think we're going to have a big Q4, but I think that's going to bleed over because like you said, we haven't really seen a lot of retail come in just yet. And this is not going to be led by retail, it's going to be led by institutions. So, people are going to be selling off a little bit maybe towards the end of the year, even though we're going to have Bitcoin start to run up. And the reality is TradFi and all these big dogs, they all buy up, in the first quarter or so, or maybe, around that March, April time, because that's when they figure out all their tax bills and everything else. And once they figure all that out, they figure out how much deplorable cash they have. And then that's when all bets are off. And that's when people are going to dive in. And if you look at traditional assets, that's just usually how it goes, is like people invest into things, within the first quarter. Then over the summer, everything is all quiet on the Western Front because people are taking their kids to the European summers, and all of these different things, and they're not really glued to the markets as closely. Well, now things this is where it's going to start to ramp up, and this is why we've always seen Q4 be very successful in Bitcoin terms, and I think that's not going to change now.
I actually think there will be a bear market next year. I do. I don't think we're deviating too much, but every cycle we do adapt and we do evolve for new things, such as, like, obviously what we've had is the ETFs being approved, and I think that they have really evolved this cycle, if that makes sense. What metrics or what new data are you currently looking at that has surprised you?
Well, what do you mean? Like data
When it
from like
comes to
adoption or?
when it comes to Bitcoin adoption.
Yeah, so I mean, like I said, there's a study that came out from Bank of America that said 75% of people have zero exposure to Bitcoin, or crypto in general. So I think retail, like you said, it's they haven't woken up just yet. But there's some alarming issues, I think, just on the underlying macro stuff as well. I mean, we're seeing help with mortgage is hitting 2008 levels in Google search trends. And, I don't know
Oh
about
my
you, but
gosh.
I know majority of people use Chat GBT. So less people are using Google, that I think right now. And those trends are equal with 2008. There's also like help with credit card debt is also skyrocketing. We see student loan debts go up. We see a lot of
Mm.
mixed signals for the market where it looks like the consumer and the jobs data and all of that, they aren't looking good. But then we have assets absolutely rocketing up. So it looks like we're in a bit of an asset bubble. And this is where the wealth gap will just continue to grow. This is why I encourage everybody to buy Bitcoin, because these wealthy individuals, they're going to diversify. They're going to be in the S&P 500. They're going to be in gold. They're going to be in all these different things. If you just narrow in on Bitcoin, you're going to turn out to be a little bit better than them. And I think over time, you'll be able to drastically change your life with all of that. So I think, everybody looks at the short-term price action. It's that meme where you're poking Bitcoin with the stick saying, come on, do something. But we're in a good accumulation phase, and we're loading up, I think, right now, to say the very least.
And that's what worries me, and it worries me a lot. It's how average Joe is struggling so much, especially with the amount of debt that they have. And it's really, really unfair, because technically they've done everything society has told them, especially the younger generation, the generation that's just hit its 20s, 21, 22, 23-year olds. They've studied well at school, they've got their good grades, they went off to university, they've come out, and they can't find the graduate jobs. And when they get into graduate jobs, they have to build up experience for 6 years before they get to anywhere where they want to be. And there's so many women now as well. And they're like, well, you know what? We've got a biological ticking clock and we haven't got a man. We haven't got a man. And what about our family life and all the rest of it? And then there's men as well. And what tends to happen is some of the men will go and have families young, and all the rest of it, but then they'll be struggling to put food on the table. And then there'll be others who go the other direction and they go down the route of education and universities, and they will get their PhDs and all the rest of it. But then again, they end up with so much student debt, housing debt, all the rest of it. And it's come to that thing now where almost no one in the UK can actually afford to buy a house. Now, a lot of people in the chat know my story, so I'm not going to go into it. I bought my first property at 17, my second property at 21. I do have other multiple properties, but even though I'm in the top 1% of female earners in the UK, I can't do that now. I literally feel like what I can get nowadays is not even worth it. And so many people are struggling. I really do think Bitcoin is probably the only way out for us, if that makes sense.
Yeah, so I mean, I agree. I think it is really the only way out because I mean, you and I both got into real estate. You got in a little bit younger than I did, so good on you. But I mean, it's just like you said, it's housing is unaffordable. If you look at the amount of college men who have graduated and are unemployed, that's levels that we haven't seen since 2020. And, the last time we saw that before 2020 was in recessionary times. So, young college men are getting absolutely decimated. They're not able to find positions. And the reality is that AI is not taking the low end, minimum wage workers. The AI is starting to take those young college graduates jobs opportunities. So, instead of hiring an analyst to go do grunt work, well, I could be more efficient and, do the analyst job myself by just utilizing AI. So AI is coming for, the initial skill-based jobs where, you don't have any experience. And this is just going to cause an everlasting bigger problem where, okay, either you're going to have to go get an advanced degree like a master's or a PhD and get in even more debt and get into more specialization and then run the risk, okay, is AI or some other technology going to disrupt this position? Or, you just quit going to school and you figure out how to become efficient with AI and work the way of the world. So I think long story short, from a male and family dynamic and a female, kind of dynamic perspective, everything's just getting pushed back later and later and later. And it's not good for the society as a whole.
It's not. And then they complain that birth rates are falling. Well, birth rates wouldn't fall if you just allowed people to have the option to have families. I mean, I really hate feminism, if I'm completely honest. Certain things that I like, equality and, equal rights and all the rest of it. But some of it is BS, if I'm completely and utterly truthful. But you don't even let people have that option now. You don't give them the option of actually buying a house, or they literally, nowadays people are screwed. They are absolutely screwed, especially the 20-year-olds. I actually feel so sorry for them. It's unreal. Okay, we're going to end it there. Thank you so much for coming on, and thank you for doing for all the things that you're doing in the crypto space. And I know you're helping a lot of people escape the rat race. So well done for doing that.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
So just quickly, guys, what's coming next on the channel is on Thursday. We've got a crypto story. We've got Doug's crypto story, Doug Hype. For all those people who don't know him, he's like the rock star of crypto. He goes around in a really big fur coat. He has this over the top, super confident character. He makes crypto content. He's really, really good. He's relatable as well. He was in Hollywood. So he went from Hollywood into crypto. And on Friday, some of you have been asking me to do some cooking. because I've been cooking since the age of 11 and I've been hosting people and I've cooked for loads and loads of people. What I'm going to do is I'm going to start off with making afternoon tea and actually teaching you the etiquettes of how to welcome guests into your home, because with the pandemic a lot of people lack these skills, and the other thing is actually how to partake in afternoon tea and etiquettes and all the rest of it. So do join me on Friday. I don't normally stream on Friday, so this is a one-off unless it takes off. But thank you so much for all the people in the chat. I hope I've called out all of you. And please do like the stream. Okay, I'm just reading the chat. I get sidetracked. Please do like the stream and I'll see you all on Thursday. Bye.